Hey there, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today is on the Elizabeth Craft Designs blog. I am calling it a Fall Blossom Time card because I used the Blossom Time stamp set that you see there on the left and colored it in sort of a fall color palette to create a little fall bouquet. So I'm going to be stamping basically all of the stamps in this stamp set multiple times except for that blue flower, kind of frilly flower that you might have noticed on the front of the stamp set. Now, I had never stamped these before, so I did stamp them off onto some scratch paper first. I'm stamping them in Memento Tuxedo black ink onto some alcohol marker friendly cardstock. And you'll see here that I do stamp like everything pretty much like 3 times. The only things I use probably 3 of are the flowers, and everything else I use like 2 sets of or 2 of. Now for my coloring, I'm doing this in Spectrum Noir markers. I have regular markers and then I have a few Illustrator markers because I just got a few of those. And so I've base coated this in CT1 and then I'm adding shading with OR1 and now darker shading with CR10. And then I'm going to blend it a little bit with CT4, which is a yellow. So I wanted this flower to kind of be like reddy orange in the middle and then fade out to yellow on the edges. So I'm kind of going back and forth and blending to get kind of the right amount of shading going. I used more of the darker shades on the petals that are underneath and then less on the top ones, obviously. So I'm going to then do the center with TN7, which is kind of like a medium brown. And then I'm going to add dots with TN8, which is a shade darker. And then I'm going to use, let's see, which one is that? That is GB9. That's an Illustrator marker to add additional dots. So here we go again with the CT1 as the base coat, shading with OR1, adding deeper shading with CR10, blending back with CT4 a bit, and then adding a little more OR1. There's CT1 again, just to get the right blend. Now my red flower, I started off with CR10, but that just turned out to be too orange. So I basically went over the whole thing with DR1. So I just start with DR1. And then I went to DR5 to add shading. And then I went to even deeper shading with DR7. Because I kind of wanted like a burgundy red flower. So again, I'm blending with the DR5 a little bit. Then I'm going to add some more shading with the DR7, blend that back again a little bit with the DR5, and then blend the entire thing out with the DR1. And I'll again do all those petals exactly the same way all the way around the flower. Now my center on this was a little bit different. I started out with BG8, which is like a brown gray, or no, BG10, sorry, with dots. Then I went to BG8 to kind of fill in. And then I added, this is going to be weird, but I added PL5, which is a purple, because I wanted to get like a purpley brown. And that actually did work. It was very, very subtle. Now the centers of these flowers aren't that important because I actually wound up putting black enamel accents dots over them to kind of give them some additional dimension. So the underlying colors, I mean, you can see them through the dots, but they're not quite as important as they would have been had I just left them, plain and not with the dots on top of them. But I don't know. In the end, it felt like these flowers, especially because they're kind of the focal point of the whole arrangement, they needed a little bit of extra something. So the glossy accents added just the right amount of kind of a little bit of shine and dimension to those centers. So there you can see I've finished coloring the red flower exactly the same way as I did the initial petals. Now for my branches here, like these curly branches, I wanted to make them look sort of golden colored. So I started off with GB2, which was an Illustrator marker, and now I'm adding GB8 to just the tiny inside ends of each little branch and then the center. And then I'm going to blend back again with the GB2. And then in the very end, I'm going to add GB9, which is another Illustrator marker, just to the stem. And now for these branches, I'm adding OR1 as the base on my little oranges, and then CR10 is some shading, and then I'm going to blend that back with the OR1. And then for my leaves, I will be adding DG2, which is an Illustrator marker, and then shading with DG3, another Illustrator marker, and then blending it back again with DG2. And so I'm going to do all of these exactly the same way. So you're only going to see me color one of each. Now these leaves were kind of my favorite. So I started out with CG2, and then I went to CT2, which is yellow, to blend them together. Because I was going for like a leaf that's changing color in the fall. And then I added some TN7, which is brown, to kind of give it even more of a fall color. And I'm trying to blend it back with CT2. And then I'm going to blend the whole thing out with this, or CG2. And then I'm blending it with the CT2. So it's green, yellow, and brown. And it created this really cool like mottled effect that I was really happy with between the three colors. Like I wasn't going for like a smooth blend, obviously, because those are three really different colors, but I did think they look very fall-like. And so I was pretty happy with how those turned out. Now for this is DG2 or CG2, sorry, is my color, base color. And then I'm going to DG3, but I'm going tip to tip. So I'm just adding just a tiny bit of shading. And then I'm going to color all the petals DR5, and then do all the centers CT3 and add a tiny bit of shading with CT4, and that takes care of those branches. And then I will die cut all of those out with the matching dies, as you see on the right there. Now this is a piece of pattern paper from the Moda Scrap Magic Mountain 12x12 paper pack. Super, super cute. And I cut that out using the second largest dotted scallop square die. And there you can see I cut one of the red and yellow branches apart to create 3 branches. And now I'm just going to start adhering items down. And there's the enamel dots that I added to the centers of the flowers. So I'm using 10mm adhesive on the flowers. And I'm just putting it in the center so that the sides still kind of will stand up off the page. And I've got a piece of foam tape on that third one to raise that up even more. And now I'm going to use a combination of 3mm clear double-sided adhesive tape and 6mm clear double-sided adhesive tape to tape all these little elements down. And you'll see here, like I only put adhesive on the end of this branch. And if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you've heard me say this a million times. But if you're not, I'm going to say it again. With floral arrangements or like bouquets or bunches in the middle, I always only put adhesive, like say in the center or on the ends, because I like having the paper kind of all on its own sort of lift up off the background, and that creates some very subtle added dimension to whatever bouquet or arrangement that you're creating. And it works really well, and it's not as much work as like adding foam tape to various pieces, although that obviously can help too. But I think it's a super easy thing you can do just without, and it takes almost no effort. Now the sentiment that I stamped is from the Banner Sentiment stamp set that you can sort of see on the left there, and then I cut that into a banner shape. It's on a piece of 85-pound white soft finish cardstock, and I'm going to stick that over my arrangement. And then my card base is a 5x5 white card base cut from 100-pound Elizabeth Craft Designs soft finish cardstock in white, obviously. And then that polka dot piece is from the Moda Scrap Thinking About Rio de Janeiro 12x12 paper pack. And that I've just cut into a 5x5 square. And now I'm just going to layer them all together. Now you may notice that I added some glitter dots here and there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film that because my camera wigged out. But they are here and there, and I used red and gold and then silver and gold as well. And so I put a little piece of 3mm adhesive on the back of that grating, and now I'm going to just staple it to the side for a little bit of rustic touch. And I'm adding one more silver and gold glitter dot just under the grating because that one got covered up. And that is the completed project. And you can sort of see those glitter dots there. They're really subtle, but they did add a nice little extra element, I thought. And there you get a good look at the coloring and the enamel dots. And I just thought it was fun to take some flowers and make a floral card that wasn't spring themed. Instead, it's fall themed. So I hope I've given you a little inspiration today for ways you can use your floral sets by changing up the colors for different seasons. You can find supplies linked in the video description and over on the Elizabeth Craft Designs blog, which is also linked in the video description, as well as on my blog, Black Sheep 303. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. I'd love that. You can also follow me on Instagram at blacksheep303. Thanks!